So, Mr. Douglas, to start with, I'm going to tell you how I started learning JavaScript. And it was like, I had an assignment, I wanted to be an interview in some company, and I wanted to be a PHP coder, but they, by mistake, assigned me as a JavaScript coder, and I just took your book, JavaScript, the good parts, and I just learned JavaScript quickly and did the assignment. And recently, there is lack of coders worldwide, and there is such big gap because some people learn JavaScript for years and learn how to code, and still have problems in producing some good code. And some people just start really quickly after some code schools and a few months of learning. They can do some reasonable things. And how do you think? What causes a situation like that?
Yeah, I wish the book had existed when I started writing JavaScript. Because I wrote the book that I wish I had read when I started. When I began with the language, I made every mistake you can make in that language. But eventually I think I figured it out and I wrote it down.
Do you think that new technologies like the new approaches like virtual reality or big data are going to be the things that would push JavaScript away? Is JavaScript suitable for such approaches?
I don't know. When it started, we didn't think JavaScript was suitable for web development, but it turned out that it was, and then it turned out it's suitable for server development, and it's starting to move into lots of other areas. It wasn't designed or intended to do anything beyond its main place, but it is a general purpose language, so it might be that it works in those other places.
You often talk about making changes to JavaScript so it becomes a better language, and you prefer functional approach in programming. And do you still believe that JavaScript can become somewhat functional language, even on the because after recent changes it went into the object-oriented direction, I think.
Well, the good news is that JavaScript is already a functional programming language. We just need one more feature to complete the basic set, and that's proper tail calls, which were in ES6. So I'm hoping that soon all the JavaScript engines will incorporate proper tail calls, and then we've got a functional language living inside of JavaScript. Most of the changes I would make to the language now would be to remove things. And unfortunately, given the way that the web works, that's not possible. We cannot go to a standard and take things out without breaking the web, and we think it'd be better if we didn't break the web. So we're stuck with most of the language as it is, but the good news is that we as programmers don't have to use the whole language, we can just use the good parts. And so it turns out we have more power than the standards makers do, because we can actually delete things from the language simply by not using them.
If you will be making a new revision of your good parts book, would you discourage some practices that were introduced recently?
Oh sure, there was a lot of things in ES6 which I think were a bad idea. Classes being the worst one. So I would recommend not doing that and instead working in a functional paradigm where I think the language is more effective.
You usually talk a lot about changes in the language like that, and I was wondering, what motivates you to work so long on a language and try to make it better and better in a way you think it would be better for us all?
Well, the thing we all have in common in this profession is we're all trying to figure out how to make things better. That's why everybody's here, right? We're all trying to figure out how to make ourselves better, how to make the industry better, how to make our tools better. It's not just in our tools, we're also looking at our processes, right? A lot of what's interesting about Agile is that we're trying to figure out how to be better about how we do our work. And so, that's the thing that I love about programming, is that we're able to do that, whereas in many other professions it's just doing the same thing they've done for 100 years. We're constantly reinventing what we do.
Do you think that, for example, the programming and the language itself can define the way we work, the workflow scheme, or the way the technology is delivered? I mean, because when we think about coding languages, we often think about only coding some features, algorithms, and technologies. Do you think that there is any kind of language or approach that tries to pushes the existing language into the way so it better cooperates with business, it forces some kind of interactions like that?
think the thing we should be trying to push toward is languages which help us to be more perfect. Because the worst thing we can do is make a program that doesn't work correctly, right? But it turns out we do that all the time because it's really, really hard. And often there are features of the programming languages that we love which are actually making it easier for us to make mistakes. So they're working against us rather than for us. So I'd like to see the next generation of languages be more thoughtful about how to protect us from ourselves and allow us to do better work, particularly with respect to security. You know, as the whole world is getting more connected, security is much more important than ever before. And most of our conventions for developing secure software are completely inadequate. And so the thing I'm hoping to see in our next generation of tools is less concern about efficiency, since Moore's law has made most concern about efficiency irrelevant, and instead be much more focused on security.
Other really serious security flaws like the JavaScript encourages? I mean,
JavaScript is better than most languages. You know, C++ being maybe the worst language in popular use right now in terms of security, but it's not nearly good enough. So we still have work to do.
and this is our first edition of Code Europe conference. How would you rate it and compare it to other conferences? Are you satisfied with what you have seen here?
I'm really impressed with what I'm seeing here. This is the biggest first conference I've ever seen. So this is quite impressive.